What happens when young queer talent stops playing by the old rules and starts rewriting them? Stick around, because while all 10 bring the fire, number 8 is the one you will not stop thinking about. In 2025, a bold new wave of gay stars is crashing through Hollywood's front gates, and they are not asking for permission. They are leading blockbuster franchises, headlining hit shows, and breaking stereotypes with every role, every red carpet, every unapologetic moment. So buckle up, because we are counting down the top 10 young gay stars breaking Hollywood's old rules. Trust us. And the best part? You'll only find it right here on LGBTQ+ Vibes. Let's get started. Charlie Bushnell, the Disney star turning quiet rebellion into bold queer representation. In a world where Disney has long stood for picture-perfect teen dreams and squeaky-clean romances, Charlie is gently, yet powerfully, rewriting the script. At just 20 years old, he broke out as Bobby in the Disney Plus series Diary of a Future President, playing the sweet, supportive older brother in a show already praised for its progressiveness. But behind the scenes, Charlie was slowly stepping into his own queer identity. He didn't shout it. He didn't chase headlines. Instead, he chose authenticity. Subtle shifts in his style, his interviews, and his online presence quietly signaled something real. And when he finally confirmed he was queer, it did not come with a bang. It came with calm, confident grace. In that moment, he reminded us that not all revolutions are loud. Some begin with a whisper and grow stronger with every truth spoken. What makes Charlie stand out isn't just that he's gay, it's how he carries it. He's part of a generation that doesn't feel pressured to declare or defend their truth. For him, queerness is not a label, it's just who he is. Natural, honest, quietly powerful. And that quiet power? It's shifting culture. Charlie is now choosing roles that matter. Stories that reflect the joy and complexity of LGBTQ+ lives. Not every queer character has to suffer. Some can laugh, stumble, love, and still be the hero. He is rejecting tropes and leaning into truth. But Charlie's impact is not just in the scripts he accepts, it's in how he shows up. His presence radiates Gen Z softness, masculinity that is vulnerable, expressive, and occasionally paired with glitter eyeliner on the red carpet. His style is not just fashion, it's a silent manifesto that says beauty and strength can coexist, even in ways the industry once ignored. He's redefining what a leading man can look like. More fluid, more introspective, more human. His fans see it, they feel it, and they follow it. Because when someone like Charlie gets to show up fully, it gives others silent permission to do the same. This isn't just about visibility. It's about momentum. He's not riding a trend, he's building a shift. Every role, every photo that breaks the mold, every choice he makes helps shape a Hollywood that no longer asks queer actors to shrink, straighten, or soften their truth. Charlie Bushnell is not just another Disney kid. He's a quiet force, an emerging trailblazer who leads not by noise, but by presence. And in a time when loud voices often drown out real meaning, his gentle honesty hits different. Drop a 1 if you believe that quiet courage is sometimes the loudest kind. The breakout star who gave queer boys a seat at the table. Before Wednesday made him a heartthrob, Doohan was just another struggling actor trying to find his place in Hollywood. Audition after audition, he kept hearing the same unspoken message. If you want to lead, you better play it straight. But Hunter had other plans. The Arkansas-born actor who once worked as a production assistant just to stay close to the industry was never interested in hiding who he was. He was gay, he was proud, and he was determined to build a career on honesty, not illusion. When he landed the role of Tyler Galpin in Netflix's Wednesday, fans around the world swooned over his brooding intensity and undeniable chemistry with Jenna Ortega. What many did not know was that behind that on-screen romance was a real-life love story with his husband, Fielder Jewett. Yes, the lead love interest in one of Netflix's biggest hits was played by an openly gay man. And that, in itself, was revolutionary. For so long, gay actors have been told they could only play gay roles, that they would never be believable as romantic leads opposite women. Hunter shattered that myth with one performance. And the best part? He did it without ever hiding a thing. But Hunter's power goes far beyond casting choices. What truly makes him a standout is the way he speaks about love, identity, and visibility. In interviews, he talks openly about coming out, his marriage, and the importance of queer joy. He is not here to be anyone's stereotype. He is here to tell full, complex human stories, with all the mess and beauty that come with them. Off-screen, his energy is refreshingly grounded. No tabloid drama, no performative activism. Just a man who loves acting, loves his husband, and loves making space for others to feel seen. And in a town that often rewards spectacle over sincerity, that kind of quiet, consistent truth is radical. He is not flashy, he is not loud, but his presence in the industry is seismic. Because every time Hunter Doohan steps into a role, whether it is a tortured barista or a small-town love interest, he brings with him the weight of every queer kid who was told they were not leading man material. And he proves them wrong, beautifully. Hunter's rise is not just about talent, it is about timing. He is part of a new era, one where queer actors no longer have to choose between success and authenticity. And as his star continues to rise, one thing is certain. He is not just breaking barriers, he is erasing them. Drop a 2 if Hunter's story makes you believe love, truth, and talent always find their way to the spotlight. The genre-bending heartthrob who turned vulnerability into power. He did not sneak into the music industry. He kicked the door open with a guitar in one hand, a broken heart in the other, and lyrics that whispered queerness with every note. Born Omar Velasco in Indiana to Mexican immigrant parents, he was not raised around luxury, recording studios, or music execs. Instead, he grew up surrounded by Spanish ballads, 90s R&B, and the quiet ache of trying to be understood. His earliest tracks were recorded in his bedroom on bargain equipment, but what they lacked in polish, they made up for in soul. From the beginning, Omar was unafraid to sing about love, real love, messy love, the kind that stings and clings. Sometimes, that love was for boys. It started subtle, a pronoun, a lyric, but queer listeners heard it, felt it, and held it like a secret passed in the dark. In a music world where masculinity is often choreographed like a performance, Omar did something quietly radical. He refused to perform it. Instead, he danced with sensuality, wore pearls and crop tops, blurred every line between soft and strong, between old-school cool and Gen Z defiance. And when he finally confirmed what fans had already suspected, that he was queer, he did it casually, with no headlines, no speeches, just truth. That kind of honesty, calm, constant, and unfiltered, is what sets him apart. In an industry that still struggles to spotlight queer Latinx voices, Omar carved out space for himself and filled it with color, rhythm, and soul. Whether collaborating with Kali Uchis or Tyler, the Creator, he kept the same raw vulnerability that first made listeners fall for him. His art was never about acceptance. It was about expression, and it still is. His 2022 album Ivory became a confessional masterpiece, a sonic diary of longing and self-discovery. Tracks like Evergreen and Killing Me were not just catchy, they were cathartic. Each lyric echoed a boy learning how to love someone else while trying to understand himself. And that's what makes Omar Apollo more than a pop star. He represents queer complexity, the magic, the mess, the truth underneath it all. He is not here to be packaged for comfort. He is here to feel and to make you feel. Omar is not chasing charts. He is chasing something real. And in doing so, he has given an entire generation permission to live louder, dress freer, and love harder. From basement sessions to Grammy nods, he proves you do not have to change who you are to change the world. Drop a 3 if Omar ever gave your truth a melody or your silence a voice. The indie darling who quietly became a queer icon. He did not explode onto the scene with flashing lights or red carpet headlines. He crept in, quiet, deliberate, and impossibly magnetic. Born and raised in Toronto, Canada, Connor's early career read like a Hollywood success story written in lowercase. He began acting at just 11, taking on indie films and critically acclaimed TV shows like Falling Skies and American Crime. He was the kind of actor critics root for, serious, introspective, always choosing depth over attention. But behind the camera flashes and festival premieres, Connor carried something unspoken, a part of himself that he feared might not fit the carefully curated stories Hollywood loves to tell. For years, he stayed silent, not out of shame, but fear. Fear that his truth might limit his options. Fear that being gay would become the headline, not his talent. Fear that the industry would stop seeing potential and start seeing risk. But in 2019, Connor chose courage over fear. On his 25th birthday, he posted a heartfelt message to Instagram and came out publicly as gay. There was no press tour, no exclusive interview, just raw, vulnerable honesty. "I knew I was gay when I was 13, he wrote. "But I hid it for years. I was afraid, ashamed." Those words hit like a lightning bolt across queer Hollywood, not because coming out is rare, but because coming out with that kind of tenderness is. And what happened next was even more powerful. Connor did not change. He flourished. He landed the lead in Locke and Key, playing Tyler Locke, a complex hero in a dark fantasy world. He was not written as queer, but Connor's quiet authenticity off-screen redefined what heroism could look like. By simply being himself, he expanded the scope of who gets to lead the story. And Connor's impact extends far beyond his roles. He began creating his own work, short films about queer love, identity, grief, and hope. He proved he was not just an actor who happened to be gay, but an artist driven by the urgency to tell queer stories with honesty, dignity, and emotional weight. Today, he stands as a different kind of LGBTQ+ icon. Not loud, not flashy, but powerful in his refusal to be anything but real. He is a reminder that bravery does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it's an Instagram post. Sometimes it is simply showing up, day after day, choosing truth over fear. In a world obsessed with noise, Connor Jessup's story proves that authenticity still cuts through, and sometimes the softest voices leave the deepest marks. Drop a 4 if Connor's journey reminded you that being real is the bravest thing you can do. Impossible to ignore. Tall, dark, and devastatingly handsome, Leo could have easily coasted through Hollywood on looks alone, but he did not. From the very beginning, he chose characters that were messy, layered, gloriously human, rejecting the temptation of being just another pretty face. And then, without fanfare, he started hinting at something deeper. Something that did not quite fit the traditional leading man narrative. On red carpets, he blended rugged masculinity with soft sensuality. In interviews, he spoke about love and identity with a casual openness that made labels feel irrelevant. And in his personal life, Leo let the rumors swirl, never confirming, never denying, because for him, freedom meant more than explanation. It was not avoidance, it was defiance. A quiet rebellion against a world that still expects queer stars to either shout or hide. Leo did neither. He simply lived. And that authenticity lit a spark. Young fans saw themselves in him, not just in who he might love, but in how he refused to shrink himself to fit expectations. He became a kind of queer-coded hero for a generation that is done with binaries and bored of perfection. But Leo's influence did not stop at his image. He began choosing roles that deepened representation. Characters who carried longing, who danced with vulnerability, who questioned the roles they were told to play. Whether portraying a bad boy with hidden tenderness or an outsider aching for connection, Leo infused each role with a quiet emotional intensity that refused to be ignored. He brought dimension to every frame without ever having to raise his voice. He did not need to. His very presence, raw, beautiful, unboxed, was a statement. Today, Leo Woodall is not just an actor to watch. He is a movement in motion. A living reminder that the future of fame does not belong to those who fit neatly into the mold, but to those bold enough to shatter it. And he shatters it with elegance, with grace, with vulnerability. Leo does not need a headline to make noise. His courage speaks for itself. In every scene, in every silence, in every choice to show up exactly as he is, Leo reminds us that sometimes the quietest revolutions leave the deepest impact. Drop a 5 if you believe Leo's fearless, unfiltered energy is exactly what Hollywood and the world needs right now. Does not enter a scene, he shifts its center of gravity. From his very first screen moments, he carried something rare, stillness that speaks. After training at the Orange County School of the Arts, he began booking roles that demanded both intensity and grace. It was his breakthrough as Ezekiel Figueroa in Baz Luhrmann's Netflix series The Get Down that set him apart. Playing a poetic, quietly fierce Bronx teen, navigating art, love, and identity during the rise of hip-hop, Justice didn't just act, he breathed the role. The performance was electric, aching with vulnerability, and earned him praise as one of the most promising young actors of his generation. From there, he pivoted to big-budget blockbusters like Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, where he played the nerdy tech genius Franklin Webb, and Detective Pikachu, holding his own opposite CGI creatures and Ryan Reynolds one-liners. He had the range, and Hollywood noticed. But while many rising stars lean into carefully crafted personas, Justice chose the harder, more honest route. In 2020, he came out publicly as gay in a heartfelt post, not just revealing his truth, but calling out the exclusion of Black queer voices from both media and movements. It was not a publicity move, it was a declaration of intersectional pride. That same year, he starred in All the Bright Places, a tender Netflix film about mental health and loss, where his portrayal of Theodore Finch added emotional depth far beyond the script. He made it clear, he would not be boxed in. He would play leads, he would play complex, and he would play queer, if and when the story deserved it. His performances began to carry something deeper, a freedom, a fullness that had not always been there before. Off-screen, Justice uses his platform with intentionality. He speaks out about colorism in casting, calls for more multidimensional queer narratives, and remains unapologetic about mixing his art with advocacy. He is not the kind of celebrity who needs to shout to be heard. His presence, calm, confident, and grounded, is its own kind of power. Whether standing on blockbuster sets or indie film stages, he brings with him the weight of authenticity. He reminds us that queer stories do not need to be tragic to be meaningful, and that visibility without vulnerability is just a shadow. Justice Smith is not here to be a headline. He is here to be whole. And in doing so, he is carving space for an entire generation to follow, not just as a symbol, but as a storyteller unafraid to live in the full light of his truth. Does not just play queer characters, he redefines how they are seen. At only 18, he stepped into the role of Charlie Spring in Heartstopper, a Netflix series that became a cultural lightning rod overnight. But this was no typical teen romance. It was quiet, tender, and deeply honest. A coming-of-age story that gave space to softness, anxiety, and the beauty of discovering who you are. And at the center of it all was Joe. His performance was subtle but unforgettable. A half smile, a shaky breath, a glance that carried entire emotional arcs. He made vulnerability look powerful. He made nervousness feel heroic. And while many young actors might hesitate to align their personal lives with their on-screen identities, Joe never played that game. From the very beginning, he was open about who he is, not to shock or stir up headlines, but because he refused to separate the art from the artist. Born on the Isle of Man, far from the noise of industry cities, Joe brought a fresh kind of authenticity to global screens. He was not trying to fit in, he was trying to tell the truth. And that honesty resonated. Heartstopper fans, especially Gen Z viewers navigating their own journeys, saw themselves in him. Not just in Charlie's story, but in Joe's real-life commitment to living openly, to being unapologetically queer in an industry still learning how to make room for that. Off-screen, he became an advocate for mental health and LGBTQ+ inclusion, using interviews and social media not as performance but as purpose. Even under the intense spotlight that comes with sudden fame, Joe remained grounded. He joked, he shared, he stayed human. But Joe Locke is not content to be just a symbol. He is here to stretch his craft, to explore stories beyond the ones already written. After Heartstopper, he took bold steps forward, joining Agatha, Darkhold Diaries, a Marvel production that places him in a new universe entirely. He is proving he can hold space in indie dramas and supernatural thrillers alike. But even as the roles expand, one thing stays the same. Joe brings his whole self to the screen. No masks, no detours, just realness. And in a world that often teaches young queer people to dim their light to survive, Joe Locke is doing the opposite. Shining brighter, not for attention, but for connection. He is not here to fit Hollywood's mold. He is here to build a new one. And if his journey has taught us anything, it is that the next generation of queer storytelling is already in good hands, and in very good heart. Isn't just a performer. He's a force of nature in motion. With his delicate features, soulful voice, and stage presence, he could easily have settled into the romantic lead role in a string of forgettable shows. But that wasn't the plan. Isaac came to the world of Broadway, a space where precision meets passion, and where lightness is casually trotted out 8 times a week. He trained at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts and quickly made a name for himself with his breakout role as Daniel in Once on This Island, earning critical acclaim for both his vocal range and emotional depth. But it was his turn as Tony in the Broadway revival of West Side Story in 2020, and then in Steven Spielberg's 2021 film adaptation, that cemented his status as more than just a rising star. He was charming, classic, yet modern, a leading man who couldn't do masculinity. He did it on his own terms. What makes Isaac stand out is not just talent, but persona. In a big industry that often protects gay men who are subdued, sanitized, or quietly tokenized, he did the opposite. Isaac came out early in his career, not as a strategy, but as a statement. He refused to categorize people. On the red carpet, he wore tailored suits with bold shirts or plunging collars. On stage, he commanded attention with his eyes, his gestures, a single note that cut through the noise. He wasn't afraid to be beautiful. And that alone was a form of rebellion, because for a long time, Broadway's leading men had to be safe, opinionated, conventional. Isaac has broken that template and built a new one, making room for queerness, feeling, and raw emotional honesty in a single breath. But he's not just rewriting what a leading man looks like, he's redefining what it means. Offstage, Isaac speaks virtually openly about mental health, identity, and the pressure to constantly prove himself in a world that still prefers its gay icons to be small, digestible figures. He's no longer introverted. He's no longer perfect. In interviews and essays, he shares small formulas of being seen without being demeaned, of work that's celebrated while still being unfathomable. And yet, through it all, he keeps showing up with power, style, and commercial parody. Isaac Cole Powell isn't here to be accepted. He's here to be powerful. And in doing so, he's bringing to Broadway and Hollywood a new definition of masculinity. Honest, fluid, compelling, and entirely his own. Is not here to fit into anyone's origin story. He is here to write his own. And like any good superhero narrative, his starts with a quiet kind of courage. The kind that moves without applause, the kind that clears a path for others. Born in 1995, Zach grew up loving comic books and movies like millions of kids. But unlike most of the heroes he saw on screen, he did not see himself, at least not fully. That made his breakthrough moment all the more powerful. In 2019, Zach made history as the first openly transgender actor to appear in a Marvel film, portraying one of Peter Parker's classmates in Spider-Man: Far From Home. The role was brief, but the impact was seismic. It was not just about being cast, it was about being seen. For trans kids watching across the world, Zach was not background noise. He was the signal. But Marvel was not the beginning or the end. Zach had already been steadily building a career on his own terms, one that blended acting, voice work, music, and even stand-up comedy. He voiced Barney in Netflix's dead-end Paranormal Park, a character who, like himself, was trans, Jewish, and delightfully complex. And in that role, Zach did something rare in animation. He gave his character texture. Not just representation, but resonance. He understood that being trans on screen does not always have to be a plot point. Sometimes, it is just part of the story. He brought that same subtle power to Transparent, Musicale Finale, and beyond, always refusing to flatten his identity into a talking point. Zach does not explain himself. He expresses himself. Off-screen, he is just as intentional. He speaks openly about the emotional terrain of transition, the pressure of visibility, and the need for more nuanced trans narratives in entertainment. But he does it with humor, heart, and honesty. He is not trying to be perfect, he is trying to be real. And that realness is what young audiences cling to. In a media landscape still catching up to the realities of queer and trans life, Zach Barak is already miles ahead. He is not trying to become a role model, he is trying to stay human. And in doing so, he is modeling something far more powerful than perfection: possibility. Zach reminds us that representation is not just about putting someone on screen. It is about what happens when that person owns the moment, fully, fearlessly, and without apology. He is not a sidekick in someone else's movie. He is the kind of hero who shows up, speaks out, and changes what we believe is possible, just by being who he is. Was never meant to stay in the background. He began his career as the charming lead in High School Musical, the series, Disney's reboot of a millennial classic. With his boy-next-door smile, acoustic guitar, and aching vocals, he quickly won over fans, and not just for his acting. His music, often drawn from personal heartbreak, revealed a deeper emotional undercurrent. But behind the scenes, Joshua was fighting a quieter storm. As his fame grew, so did the pressure to define himself, on stage, on screen, and off. For a long time, he kept his private life just that, private. Until 2021, when he decided to speak, not with a PR statement, but with a video. Casually, honestly, and without any script, he looked into the camera and said "I guess this is my coming out video." It was unpolished, unrehearsed, and unforgettable. What followed was not an orchestrated campaign or a brand shift. It was a young man stepping into his truth without asking permission. Joshua did not immediately label himself, and that uncertainty made some people uncomfortable. But for others, especially young fans navigating the complexities of their own identity, his honesty was exactly what they needed. He showed them that you do not need all the answers to live authentically, that the journey is the message. And through it all, he kept creating. His songwriting deepened. His interviews grew more raw. His stage presence became electric with purpose. He sang about heartbreak, faith, confusion, and joy with the kind of intimacy that only comes from finally breathing without holding your chest tight. But what sets Joshua apart is not just his openness, it is his resilience. He faced criticism, speculation, and media pressure with a grace beyond his years. He talked about his struggles with mental health, his search for spiritual grounding, and his decision to live truthfully in a world that often punishes nuance. And still, he did not retreat. He leaned in. With each song, each post, each live performance, he reminded fans that being vulnerable is not a weakness. It is a form of leadership. Joshua Bassett is not just another Disney star breaking out of the mold. He is reshaping it entirely. He is proof that you can go from scripted roles to unscripted truth and still be loved for it. And perhaps more importantly, he is showing an entire generation that being real might be the boldest, most revolutionary thing you can be. And if you are still here, still breathing a little deeper, still feeling a little seen, then you already know. This is more than a list. This is a revolution in motion. 10 bold souls who chose honesty over safety, truth over silence, and in doing so, gave the rest of us permission to show up fully. They are not just actors and singers. They are mirrors, trailblazers, living proof that queer stories belong everywhere. So if their voices moved you or reminded you of your own, drop a comment, leave a rainbow, and hit that subscribe button. Join us here at LGBTQ+C Vibes, where every week we celebrate courage, complexity, and the magic of being unapologetically you. The future is queer, and it starts with stories like these.